This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Video transitions. How can we take our audience from one shot to another in a way that's creative and makes our footage stand out? How can we edit more seamless transitions and take an average shot and turn it into something that looks much more interesting? Well, in this video, I'm going to be sharing some editing tips and techniques that will instantly make your footage look much more professional. It's coming up. Hey everyone, Steve here from Learn Online Video, and today we're talking all about editing transitions. In a previous video, I showed you how to shoot these transitions. I walked you through each one step by step, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to edit those transitions. So if you haven't seen that video yet, or you'd like to learn how to shoot these transitions, be sure to check it out. I will link that video below. Now, I'm going to be editing everything in Final Cut Pro, but the tips and techniques that I'll be showing you today can be applied to just about any editing software. Now, before we jump into this tutorial, let me just show you what all of these transitions will look like when they're edited into a short 30-second sequence. So there you have it. Now, in front of me here, I have that same sequence on my timeline, although I've removed the color grading, the black bars, and the music so that we can focus on each transition and the sound effects that I've used. Now, let's start with the first transition in this sequence, the wipe. Okay, here we go. Transition number one, wipe. Just like that, we go from a wide shot to a mid shot as we wipe past this concrete pillar. So all of these transitions are made up of at least two shots. Let's just see shot number one of this transition. See there? The entire pillar has filled the frame, and that is exactly how we want to end shot number one of this transition. Okay, and then the start of shot number two, again, is the pillar in the foreground completely filling the frame. Now, the key to this transition is having consistent camera movement in each shot. With the camera moving at the same pace, you can cut between one clip and another and you get a pretty seamless transition. This is a straight cut between shot number one and number two. To make this even more seamless, what you can do is add a cross dissolve. Just like that. I'm just going to drag a cross dissolve effect. Now, by default, these are far too many frames, so I'm just going to reduce this by at least half. That's just going to make this transition much more seamless. Let's take a look. There you have it. It's a subtle difference, but it is a difference, and it does make that transition just a little bit more seamless. Okay, the next transition in this sequence, the mask transition. Let's take a look. Camera pushes forward, goes through the camera, and takes us to shot number two. Shot number two being this hyperlapse. Now, in order to pull this effect off, I needed something in the shot that was green that I could remove in post-production. So in this case, I added this piece of green felt to the front of the camera here, knowing that I could remove this in post-production, which is exactly what we did. If I just enable, as you can see, I've removed the green from this shot, the green felt. Now, when shooting this clip, I broke the #1 rule of green screening, and the #1 rule is don't have anything else within your shot that is green. And as you can see, look, I've got trees up here in the top left corner, I've got grass, weeds. The background to our subject even has green graffitied onto the wall. There's a lot of green in this shot. In an ideal world, the only thing that would have been green in this shot is the felt. So in order for me to pull this transition off in the edit, I actually needed to create two layers. I've created one layer, which is removing the green felt from this shot. But as you can see, I've also added this mask. And what this mask is doing is it's only removing the green from within this mask, but none of the other green from within this shot. So I needed to take an extra step in order to pull this transition off. But like I say, if you're looking to do something similar, just make sure there's nothing else green within your shot, and this transition will be much, much easier. And as well as masking out the green, I also added a speed ramp. Speed ramp going from the end of shot number one into shot number two. Now for this transition, I used two sound effects. We've got this one here. This is a whoosh sound effect. I like to add a whoosh between these transitions. It creates a much more seamless effect. Also down here, I've got the sound effect of a camera clicking. So when we play this clip back, having removed the green, added some speed ramping and a couple of sound effects, this is the result. Now, editing these transitions is a combination of a couple of things. Number one, understanding your editing program, and number two, understanding the basics of video editing. As you can see, it's totally possible to turn a very average shot into something that looks much more professional, creative, and engaging when you understand the basics. Now, if you're not confident when it comes to video editing, that's okay, but I highly recommend that you take a crash course on whatever editing program it is that you use, because it's going to make all the difference to your films and videos. And if you would like to learn how to edit for free, then you're in luck, because Skillshare are offering a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership to the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description below. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives that literally has thousands of classes on topics including illustration, design, photography, filmmaking, and of course, video editing. Final Cut Pro, yes. Premiere Pro, yes. But wait, what if I don't use either of those and I'm using free editing software like DaVinci Resolve? Well, yes, Skillshare has a class on that as well. So if you're a creative looking to learn, explore, and discover new things, then Skillshare really is the place to do it. With classes to fit your schedule and skill level for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, you can binge knowledge to your heart's content. So you've got nothing to lose. Use the link, take a class, soak up some knowledge, and get creative. Right, moving on. The next transition that we've got is the match cut. This is a simple transition, but it's an absolute classic. Let's take a look. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is we're cutting to different shots that have been framed the same. In this case, my subject is walking, I'm tracking her from the side, and I'm cutting between those clips. Just like that. This is the most basic transition of them all. And you can take this transition to any level that you like, really. Again, I was just keeping this edit relatively simple. If you've got the time and you really want to take this transition to the next level, then I would recommend making sure that your subject is the same size from one shot to another, and also pay close attention to their feet and their legs and the movement and the direction in which they are heading from one shot to another. Let's just see one more example, this time subject walking towards us. Again, it's completely up to you how far you'd like to take this transition. I kept it very simple. In the past, I've actually lined up my subject's eyes from one shot to another, and that definitely creates a much more seamless transition. Takes a bit more time, but again, it's up to you. How far do you want to take these transitions? Okay, next transition, the black frame. Okay, right, let's just dive a little bit deeper into that transition and let me break down how I did that. So look, shot number one, there's a couple of things going on here. Shot number one, we push forward. Camera pushes forward, and then just here, we have a fade to black transition. So we're fading to black and we're fading out of black for shot number two. That's relatively straightforward. Camera pushes forward at the end of shot one, we fade to black. At the start of shot two, we fade in from black. A couple of other things I did on this transition. I sped up the last few frames of shot number one. So I speed ramped it, speed ramped out, and I sped up the first few frames of shot number two. So it quickly speed ramps out and it quickly speed ramps in to shot number two. Also, we speed ramp in to shot number two, and then we play in real time just for a second, but then we speed ramp out of this shot like that. So there is a lot going on in that one transition, but hopefully that gives you a much better understanding of how we're linking one shot to another to create that transition. Okay, moving on, the wall orbit. Now, one of my most asked questions from the last video was, how did you edit the wall orbit? So that's exactly what I'm going to show you now. So this transition is basically a combination of multiple shots, the same shots, just at different locations each time. Okay, let's have a look at one of the original clips from this transition. This is the raw footage, okay? I'm gonna hit play. As you can see, the camera is orbiting around our subject as she leans against the wall. So look, at the moment, this clip is 7 seconds long. We want it to be much quicker than that. So I'm gonna speed up this clip, and I'm gonna make it 4 times the speed. So we've now taken a 7-second clip, and we've brought it down to just under 1.5 seconds. Let's take a look. Not bad, not bad. Could do with that being a little bit smoother. I would definitely like to stabilize that a bit more, and look, I'm within Final Cut Pro X, so I'm going to enable stabilization. Let's just take another look. Much better. Okay, so we've got a shot that was 7 seconds long. We've got it down to less than 1.5 seconds, but we're going to need to repeat this process. So I'm going to do this again with another few shots. Okay, so I've now repeated that process 4 more times with these different clips shot at different locations. Let's take a look. Okay, now it's an improvement, we're getting there, but it's definitely not great. There's a couple of problems that I can see here. Number one, the main one for me, being that by adding stabilization, I'm now getting this kind of warped effect in my footage, which is exactly what you don't want because it looks ugly. Let me just show you again. See that? It's looking a bit jumpy, a little bit wobbly. It doesn't look great. Now the fix to this, of course, would be to disable stabilization or maybe tweak the settings a little bit. I could have just shot it smoother, of course. That would have been a much better idea. Now what you'll notice is that this warp effect is really only taking place at the beginning and end of each of these shots. See it there? And the beginning of that one, and beginning of that one. So instead of removing the stabilization, because the middle of these clips do actually look nice, smooth and stable, so I want to hold on to that. If I disable the stabilization, the shot might look a little more shaky than what I would like. So here's what I'm going to do, and this is the ultimate pro tip for editing this transition, and that is speeding out and in of each of these shots. Speed ramping, again like what we did with the other transition, we are going to speed in to this shot and we're going to speed out of this shot, and we're going to repeat that process for each of these shots, and that is going to make a huge difference. So here's how I do this. Okay, I come to the very start of my shot and I jump forward 10 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a speed ramp 10 frames in. The speed of this original clip is 4 times. But what we're going to do to the very start of this clip, the first 10 frames, is we're going to speed this up by 20. So now this first shot really speeds in, and then we hold on 4 times speed all the way to the end. And then we're going to do the same again. We're going to come 10 frames back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to add another speed ramp out of shot number 1. I'm also going to set that at 20 times speed. So shot 1 speeds in at 20 times speed. It then holds at 4 times speed and then speeds out at 20 times speed. Or to put it really simply, we speed ramp in and we speed ramp out of shot number 1. Now we're going to repeat again that same process for each of these shots. Okay, so we now have 5 shots on our timeline, all shot and edited in exactly the same way. Let's take a look. And as you can see, this is looking much smoother now. That warping effect from adding the stabilization has now been hidden by the speed ramping. The only thing that we're really missing now are some sound effects. So let's add some whoosh sound effects between each of these shots, and let's add some ambient traffic sounds. Let's take a look. Much better, much more seamless. Okay, moving on, the rotate transition. Okay, let's break it down. Shot number 1, we push forward whilst rotating, camera rotates, and we end on a real close-up shot of our subject. And then shot number 2, we basically repeat that same shot but in reverse. So this time we start on our subject's bag, on her back, and we rotate whilst pulling backwards as our subject walks away. Now, what you may have noticed with those 2 shots is the speed ramping. Let's just take a look. Yes, as you can see, so we start this shot off in real time, we're pushing forward, camera is rotating, and then we're speed ramping out. Then shot number 2, we're speed ramping in, just again for probably 10 frames, I would say, and then we're going into real time. Let's play that back once again. Nice, simple, straightforward, that one. Okay, next up, the whip transition. Nice and simple, that one. Look, shot number one, we start off on our subject, and then the camera whips out, creating this motion blur. We cut on that motion blur, and then shot number two, second shot, starts on motion blur, and we whip in to our subject. Just a straight cut. The most important part about that shot is where you cut it. You want to make sure that you cut those two shots in that motion blur. Okay, moving on, next transition. We've got another match cut. I won't go into too much detail about this one because it's exactly the same as our first match cut. The only difference with this transition is that we're now shooting nice and wide. Let's take a look. Nice and simple. Okay, moving on, our next transition is the through the floor transition. Let's take a look. Okay, let's break this transition down, starting with shot number one. Now, what I really like about this transition is, for me, it's one of the best ones. It looks the coolest out of all of these transitions, and it's one of the easiest to do. So shot number one is literally just a camera movement, starting high and going low. Down like that. Now, camera is moving down. Now, I've deliberately shot this next to these steps because I want to give the illusion as though the camera is going below the ground. This is really straightforward, this first shot. Camera starts high up and moves down. I haven't adjusted the speed or anything like that of this first clip. Okay, shot number two. Shot number two starts really high up in the cavity of the ceiling in this car park. Let's go frame by frame. Camera moves down as our subject walks towards us to give us the illusion as though the camera has traveled through the ground. Let's just go frame by frame. Shot number one, down past the steps, straight in to shot number two. Hard cut again, no cross dissolve there. And then just at the end here, as our subject walks towards us, I had a quick speed ramp just to create a black frame. I wanted to end that last shot just a little bit quicker, so I just added a quick speed ramp there. So look, I hope by you seeing some of the techniques that I use to edit transitions like this, you now have a much better understanding and can apply these same techniques to your films and videos. If you'd like to learn more about video editing, be sure to take a free class using the link below. And if you found this video useful, let me know by giving it the old thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, learn more about video production, you can do that by watching one of my other videos just over there. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.